I suppose a lot of people maybe, possibly, maybe, possibly, maybe, possibly, maybe, possibly, maybe, possibly, maybe. Alright, guys, welcome to the third episode of the TheWhatCast, where today's theme will be conspiracy theories and events within the Second World War. For today, we have split into four, each of us given a power from the era. Liam with the United States, me with Nazi Germany, Frank with the Soviet Union, and Makey with Great Britain. The Second World War started in 1939 and lasted until 1945, where an estimated 35 to 60 million people were killed and an estimated trillion USD in material damages. Within this relatively short war, there are countless atrocities, and to this date there are still conspiracies and stories coming out. Although it only lasted 6 years, you could spend a lifetime studying and investigating it, and on your last day on Earth you'd still be curious. A lot of the acts we will be discussing in this video are just theories. Some may be true, some may be false, but here are some of the ones we find most interesting. Some may be quite gruesome, so viewer discretion is advised. And for the sponsor for today's video, we have Kingwin.net. The link is in the description. They do cheap games, cheap software. You can get Windows 10 keys really cheap. If you click the link below and buy something on it, you'd be supporting our channel. It would mean a lot. And it's a website I use personally, so I can trust it myself. Now, background music for this video is made by Darach Sharkey. His Instagram is in the description. Big thank you to him, and he is also who made our intro music. Big thank you to him as well. And another thing is, as you can see, we have a new logo, so you know, channel's kind of changing up, making it more kind of refined and better looking. And of course our intro, which is quite well done in my opinion. Spent quite a bit of time making that, and of course Darach's music in there too. And one thing I want to discuss before the video starts is the Nazi flag in the thumbnail. The reason that is there is because it's a part of history. It's being used to represent Germany in that era of time. It's not there as like a racist remark, you could say. Just want to get that cleared out for everyone. And so once again, we'll be taking turns giving out our conspiracy theories. And to start off with, we're starting off with Frank.
How's it going? So I'm starting with the Soviet Russia there, and funnily enough, it was hard to find proper conspiracy theories. Wonder why. But Russia obviously very interesting group to talk about. And anyway, the one I'm going to start with is the Russian sleep experiment, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard of. Just making sure everyone can hear me there. All right, yeah?
Yep, everything's
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah. Stuff. Right, so the general gist of the sleep experiment was during the Second World War, there was many experiments done on human prisoners, mainly prisoners of war, political prisoners that the various sides of the war had captured, and trying to find out ways to get the better of their enemies. And this experiment was Russia had 5 political prisoners, and the idea was to see the effects on human behavior after extended periods without sleep. So what they did, they took 5 political prisoners and locked them for 15 days in a gas chamber, and the subjects were administered an airborne stimulant to keep them awake for at least 30 days. The idea was to keep them awake for at least 30 days to see what would be the effects after that period of time. They were told they would be set free. They could stay awake for that length of time. As we'll find out, that wasn't to be the case. Everything seemed normal for the first couple of days after the experiment began. The subjects continued to talk to each other as well as whisper to the researchers who were monitoring from outside the chamber. The conversations were monitored the whole time, monitoring the behavior of the subjects, and there were 2-way mirrors so that they could actually see into the chamber. For 5 days, things continued relatively normally. until things began to change. The prisoners started to show signs of stress and paranoia. They stopped talking to one another and only whispered briefly to each other. From the ninth day, things became worse. Two of the inmates started to run around screaming at the top of their lungs. This is when things began to get even stranger. The researchers fear the worst after this. The subjects have been silent for a couple of days, and they decided to open the chamber when they heard that someone inside kept saying they didn't want to be free. So on the 15th day, when the chamber was opened, the results were horrific. One of the prisoners was dead. All of them were severely mutilated, with their flesh torn off and abdomens ripped open. They also seemed to have eaten their own flesh, which is just brutal. Refused to leave the chamber and fought back with the force and aggression that they did not have before being put in the chamber. Remember, these were political prisoners, mainly soldiers. They were almost superhuman, as it was described, in power, and tore off their own muscles and bones to resist being removed from the chamber. Yeah, oof. After that one, apparently they kept whispering, "I must remain awake." After being removed from the chamber, the prisoners continued to show incredible resistance to drugs and sedatives, and they tried to keep themselves, awake. And curiously, if they fell asleep, they died. So any of the subjects who fell asleep in the period after being removed died, according to the reports from the experiment. So kind of mental at this stage.
Yeah.
But as they continue to fall and sleep and die, the researchers decided to shoot the rest of them. They weren't given the freedom that they were promised at the beginning of the experiment anyway. But before shooting the last surviving subject, allegedly, the researcher asked the last remaining subject who he was or what he was, because they had shown serious personality differences from what they had when they first went in. And apparently the man replied saying he was the evil that resided in every human mind and that was only kept in check by sleep. Soon after, the researcher shot him dead and went about covering up any trace of this experiment. And that is the Russian sleep experiment. Now,
I remember looking into that before, like probably it was quite a long time ago. But the way it was kind of like that the doctors thought was happening is they're basically becoming so addicted to this like drug that was in the gas they were inhaling. That's kind of what was like happening to them. Like as soon as they got off it, like
and
that's
they wanted to stay awake with that.
yeah, like they wanted to be awake. Like it was euphoric almost. Like
yeah.
And I'm curious, do you all believe that happened?
Well, that's the next.
Like.
That's the next. This is the next part. So
I believe that's.
Please go on.
It's what. What was that?
In theory, like I suppose it would be something desirable. Imagine having soldiers that were never awake, always constantly alive. So it says it could be plausible. Like
I'm sure like experiments have been done to see what happens when people stay awake for as long as they can. But like to think of it like apart from the body's own physical capabilities of being awake, looking at like if you force them to be awake using these drugs that like don't let you sleep, like that's like it's so messed up like that. Like you kind of break that natural human like response. Pretty much breaking a person like.
All right, so just to clarify what that is, that story first surfaced on a wiki page in 2010. No one knows who the author was, but they went by the username Orange Soda. And the story is a creepypasta. Is anyone familiar with what a creepypasta is?
No.
Yeah, but so creepypasta would be like Smiling Jack or one of them ones.
Yeah, so
it's like horror.
I've got the definition here, and it's creepypastas are short, user-generated content created with the intention to scare people with gruesome stories about death, paranormal activities, otherworldly occurrences, etc.
Mhm.
So it's now what's funny about it is, like you said, Mikey, the plausibility of needing to study what the like benefits of having soldiers who didn't have to sleep and that kind of thing. People still argue to this day whether it's actually true. Now, whether it's true or not, the evidence seems to point to say that it isn't true. But there were several experiments done by Americans, done by Germans, the Nazis during World War II, and the Russians that we definitely haven't heard all about to this day. So I suppose there is a possibility that something along these lines happened, that it
Mhm.
became supernatural in nature. I'm not sure, but it's interesting to think about.
I mean, like,
It's
it's not
interesting
that
too how Mikey
surprising that, like,
pointed out.
sorry, carry on. Now.
I was just gonna say it's interesting how Mikey pointed out like these what we say generals or like military
Hi.
officials in some of the
Yeah.
greatest powers in the world. Like these are some of the big dogs like in military power we're talking.
Mhm.
And they want stronger soldiers even more. And this is pretty well known, like throughout history, like a lot of like commanders, generals, and warlords have always given like their troops drugs before war.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Nazis were like taking I can't remember what it was now, but they would take a certain drug
It
that
was
was like
amphetamines, wasn't
prescribed
it?
to them. Yeah, I think
Mhm.
it
I,
was
th- I
amphetamines.
don't know if it
Yeah,
was. I
it's
don't know
like
if it was meth, like, but
like each country, like like the
Nah,
US
it was
had
a
their
weeds
own
man, like just
ones,
to calm down
and like
for every
I know
battle.
the Germans they use speed. That was like their choice. Like they all kind of
I'm
tried
pretty sure there
different
was
ones.
some amphetamines there too, though.
Yeah, speed's an amphetamine.
the Germans speed experiment.
Speed experiment.
Just like Sonic the Hedgehog running down the road, like.
Yeah,
I know, but like as you're
there
saying, like
have actually.
these like supernatural like things happening. I mean, like I suppose like once you break the
Oof.
body past that point of it's like natural, like being awake, like people like could
Can I ask a
freak
question?
out like that.
Hey, Frank, you know, like,
Yep.
during the sleep experiment, in the initial first few days, were they like fed proper meals as well?
Oh yeah,
Or-
the only thing that wasn't meant to be granted to them was sleep. So presumably they were fed well. They had water to drink. The room wasn't particularly like bare or anything like that. Not like a prison cell, I don't think. I think it was just. But then again, Soviet Russia probably was.
They were known
Yeah,
for
but
their customs.
yes,
of,
something that
yeah.
is kind of funny though is the thing went on for 15 days. Assumingly, that's what the thing says. But the longest someone has ever gone without sleep was, let me see, I have it here. So Randy Gardiner stayed awake for 11 continuous days to enter the Guinness Book of Records. And he did have hallucinations, paranoia, dizziness, slurred speech, no eating his own flesh or anything like that. Now, this was
Mhm.
11 days. And unfortunately, the fun fact to add to that, he couldn't enter the Guinness Book of Records because he missed the deadline. That was in 1964.
Oh wow.
But apparently, the longest continuous period of wakefulness was by a woman named Maureen Weston in England, who went without sleep for 18 days in 1977 as part of a rocking chair marathon. And she didn't become cannibalistic or tear open her abdomen or anything like that. And she apparently holds the record to this day now. Guinness Book of Records removed the category because it was a risky thing to put anyone through. But
Yeah,
apparently she
thanks
holds
to
the
that again.
record. So,
Mhm.
Maybe it was something
So-
in the chemicals in the air they infused in the
that's what
chamber.
Giovanni was saying there as well.
Here, I am curious though, Frank. Did this woman from England have any like paranoia or hallucinations? Anything mentioned of that?
No, I don't think so. I didn't look into her extensively. It was more I was just kind of finding the facts who
I'd
who
imagine.
had the longest.
I'd
Yeah.
imagine the man you were talking
Period.
about for the Guinness World Book of Records would be like keeping to himself, like trying to concentrate on completely staying awake, but she was concentrated on a different task, so maybe she wasn't thinking too much. So she was just thinking, rock back and forward.
Everyone knows. Everyone knows you need to concentrate in your rocking chair.
Just like fucking bobbing her head away, fucking death metal.
Some granny that was like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very interesting, Frank.
Some woman for like
Good, did a good job there.
Giovanni, is the way you want to do this? We all kind of do one each or whatever, and then go back around, or
Yeah.
I feel
We
like
do
that.
one each, then we go around. Yeah.
perfect.
take
Okay,
one down,
so-
pass it around, 19 name.
Okay, Mikey.
Knock on the wall.
So what? So my theory
Someone
here
kick Mikey.
is so I'm here. My topic was to talk about conspiracies from Nazi Germany, and basically my conspiracy here is going to be on a potentiality that the Nazis went to the moon. Now, obviously, like it's a
Oh.
pretty far-fetched one. I was like trying to look on YouTube for stuff about it, but there honestly wasn't much. But on like different like news websites, different articles and stuff, there was some information on it. Now, basically, the main guy who's looked into this stuff, his name was Vladimir Terziski. That was his name. Yeah, he was an engineer and a physicist. But anyway, so the way I'm going to start this off is so basically the Russians were the ones the first to send an unmanned spacecraft to the moon, and it collected a soil sample. Now, as you know, like the moon, like, you know, it was undisturbed for billions of years, but this sample, it was about 350 grams that they took back to Earth. When they were studying it, it kind of like, it was like soil that had been buried on top of itself, is the way, like, when they were studying it, that's what it appeared to be. As in, like, it's just like someone dug it up and then, like, threw it back into the ground, so it was, like, mixed. It was kind of weird.
Obviously, the moon men exist.
No, yeah. Like, as we know, like, the Germans were extremely advanced in their technology. Like, for example, they made the V2 rocket, which was the first ever craft to be in space. Basically, it was like a missile that would go way up in the atmosphere into space, then come back down onto its target. Like, they were so advanced. But anyway, this Bulgarian guy, Vladimir Terziski, basically he was looking into this stuff for quite some time, and he's written a book about it. I haven't looked at the book at all, but basically he allegedly had solid evidence on this happening, but I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if he died or what. I wasn't able to find anything on that, but he never, like, you know, released what his evidence was.
Mysteriously vanished.
Now, for this,
Sketch.
this is what he says. He was saying that the Nazis, they were working with the Japanese and potentially an alien race to achieve this. And now, like, obviously them working with the Japanese is kind of more plausible. But anyway, so yeah, so they were working with them, and the idea is that they were able to develop a rocket or a space plane that was able to go to the moon. Now, if you look at there were these called the Nazi fixed wing planes. Now, if you ever go the B-2 bomber, it's like the most advanced looking bomber in the world. Like, if you ever look at it, if you Google it, like, you know, it looks like out of this world. Now, the Germans, they've developed aircraft that look so similar to it back in like the 1930s and 40s. Like, it was unreal. And, like, in theory, these planes, excluding their engines, were capable of being able to fly in space, like, because, like, they flew so high that, like, you know, they were pressurized, like, they had their own oxygen supply. So when you think of it from that side, they had the potentiality. Now, the reason, like, you know, a regular aircraft engine won't work in space is because, you know, it requires fuel and air mixed to create a combustion to produce thrust. Now, you see, in theory, if they used... It's so simple in theory that they could have done it. If they mixed liquid oxygen with their fuel, then it would have been able to be used in space. That's how the Sabre engine works. When it's in Earth, it uses air and fuel, and then as soon as it exits the atmosphere, it switches to liquid oxygen and fuel to create thrust in space. And obviously the engine itself can rotate to change direction in space, because in space there's no air for the ailerons on the plane to make movement, so it would have to turn by the engines actually pivoting. And just when you think of it in that simplicity, it's not that hard, and obviously these guys made mad stuff. It doesn't seem that out there, because it's well known that the ex-German scientists, they worked with NASA they made specifically the solid rocket booster on the Saturn V rocket. It's pretty crazy. And another thing he was saying, this Vladimir guy, is that they potentially were working in Antarctica. They apparently had a secret base there, which is also another conspiracy theory which I was looking into, which kind of links into this one, so I'm going to kind of combine them to make one. So basically, the Nazis did do Antarctic expeditions, small scale, maybe one boat goes down and they kind of explore it, but there was obviously reports that they had fleets going there, massive expeditions going on, and that they were looking for underground caves and rivers that they could build a bunker in. And there's an alleged thing where they found the perfect underground cave where they actually built a bunker in it, which apparently had powerful groups, for example the Illuminati, and apparently they met aliens in there too, which were helped them create their advanced technologies. When you think of Germany, they were the first ones to basically what you call the highway system. They made the Autobahn, connected all of Germany, and investing in that infrastructure is one of the main things that gave them such power, because being able to transport stuff from one side of the country to the other really easily, that gave them a massive advantage. But yeah, just their sheer technological advances, it doesn't seem too crazy that they were able to get to they got to space, and it doesn't seem too crazy that they'd get to the moon too, because the hard part about getting to the moon is getting out of Earth. Once you're in space, there's no resistance for your aircraft to slow down. So once you're out of Earth, you don't need that much fuel.
I'm curious though, what do you think was I think it was something the Nazis were talking about here, so do you think the malice was behind this? What do you think they were doing on the moon, would you say?
See, that I don't know.
Were they going full
You see, there's some of the reasons
full Despicable Me, gonna steal the moon?
Nazis trying to steal the moon one time.
Proven. You think if they did get to the moon, they'd be proud of it. They'd want to share that to the world, let them know how powerful they were. Which I think that's one of the main arguments against it being a possibility, because they definitely would have done that. Sure, if you look at the space race.
Why wouldn't they have?
Yeah, that would
Yeah, there was things as well saying that sorry to cut you off there, but there was things there as well saying that that the British had activity in Antarctica during the war.
Yeah, lots of countries did.
Well, but it was meant to be. I can't remember the years on them here, but as well, it said that the US detonated a nuke on Antarctica, and it was proven to be true. I don't know about the British forces, but it says so. But the US dropped a nuke on Antarctica one year. I think it was during the war or right after the war.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Yeah, they would have done that because Antarctica is
yeah.
an excluded place. There'd be no, there'd be very little repercussions doing it there versus in their own country, which of course they did do.
But if
didn't they do that in the Nevada desert?
Yeah.
If the Nazis were hiding out there too as well, then it would only make sense. It kind of almost draws another line to your conspiracy here. That if they were all having activity up in Antarctica, who knows? Maybe there was a threat up there that we were never told about. There's a lot of things we're not told about until 50 years after.
See, one of my ideas that the Nazis would have went to Antarctica, for example, is obviously there's no guarantee for them that they would have there was conquest to conquer the world would have worked out. So like if they made a base in Antarctica that like you suppose you could say Nazi war criminals could hide at, like virtually invisible to the rest of the world, unable to be found, like it would work out for them. Like that would be the perfect place.
It does seem that like the greatest leader ever would have no escape plan to. Like maybe he was just simply that arrogant.
Hey,
and
maybe
really
that
believed
would-
he was that much of a god.
Maybe this
It's like
conspiracy could link up to
controversial.
Hitler never like, like Hitler's alleged disappearance. Like maybe that's where he went.
He went to Antarctica and
Who knows?
He's just
and got
chilling in
nuked by the US. He managed to escape Germany to a nuke dropped on his head.
Oh,
There
that's
was,
just bad luck, mate. That's just bad luck right there.
I wish I could throw them up here for you, Gio, but there was I think the CIA did as well, just to like look into Hitler's disappearance. Not that, and a lot of people point to that they believe it, but it was simply just to see. But that doesn't mean if they believe it or not. But they did make some like, I don't know what you call them, like composite sketches of like what he might look like, or a couple of different disguises.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
showed Mike them last night, and they did look quite strange, man.
Yeah. Like
I'm
you
sure-
can change how you look a lot. Yeah, you see, I think recently Hitler's alleged disappearance has kind of been discredited because where he was like hiding out, they found like these teeth, and like only recently like they've compared them to like his dental records, and they checked out
Hmm.
to be his teeth.
Hmm.
I don't know where they're kept. I don't remember. Like I was kind of
Who
looking at
held
it
the
like
records?
during the week. I don't know. Probably.
Yeah, the dentist could have been a Nazi. Nazi dentists exist, like, you know.
Yeah, of course.
Nazi dentists exist in this day and age
Oh.
to keep the secret of Hitler's teeth.
Like, oh yes, all these white teeth, yes. Mm.
Good old-fashioned Aryan teeth.
German engineering at its finest.
Those
Yeah, but yeah, these fixed wing aircraft they made,
Audi teeth.
guys.
Very
Let's
like-
move on
yeah,
from the
very-
teeth.
shut the fuck
It's like, for example, like the B-2 bomber was made in 1989, and like just looking how these aircraft made back then were so like similar to stuff we have like nowadays, or I suppose like in the year 1989. It's like maybe they could have developed that engine too, because the engine is kind of like the only reason they couldn't. Like, the engine in theory is relatively simple. It's just like there is like, I'm not saying I believe in it, but like it's a possibility. Like obviously I'm not saying I believe this. It's just a conspiracy theory I was looking into there for the podcast.
Hot,
Yeah.
hot take. What if this is actually a time travel conspiracy theory?
Well, if you ever want to do
And
that,
then
that
that-
one, we always have JFK with the Umbrella Man.
The Nazi dentists. The Nazi dentists came back from 2021 to teach the Germans how to make
Hitler teeth.
rockets that could go into space. Just saying.
falsified Hitler teeth.
That's one for you. Look into that one.
I believe it, man. I don't know where your sources are, but I believe it.
Believe what?
The sources are his all-knowing omnipotence.
Well, yeah, that's
Sharkey knows
that
these
would be
things.
my theory there. Does anyone have any questions?
Gio, this isn't really a question, but I was just, well, maybe it is. I was just wondering, because I always heard from like over the years, just growing up, that like Hitler was on methamphetamines himself, and that's why he became so delusional and crazy. And I don't know if you like found anything on that.
I think I read it
Did you-
somewhere
did you
when I
hear
was
about that at
reading
all?
through stuff.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't even know where I picked that up myself, but maybe it's just a bias I have. But I heard like that Hitler himself used to be on methamphetamines, like an addict to this stuff.
Yeah,
So
that would
I think you
completely
really
make sense,
why
because
he's so delusional.
if you look at dictators like Winston Churchill, Hitler, whoever you want to think of, like think about in that 6-year period how much they done. How can you do that in that amount of time? So like they must have obviously been awake far more than like the average person. So like how would they achieve that? through these drugs,
Well,
like, that would keep them up.
I mean that is saying that like they were single-handedly doing everything that happened during World War.
Yes, yes, of course,
II,
but like
which I
still,
don't
like
think is-
they
Oh,
would have
making
had like the
sure.
last say, for example, like.
Yeah.
They would have the first say. And there is one more thing to like think about. So imagine like today, right? Joe Biden and I don't know, someone went to war, right? Just imagine you're back in that era. Well, it's kind of strange to think of like Joe Biden taking drugs. Like we think of our leaders as like the best of the bunch. Maybe sometimes, ideally, maybe it might not be that way in practice, but we hope for them to be the best that they can, like our politicians and leaders.
Good old Leo Varadkar.
It is
I hope
strange to think
Joe
what would they be
Biden-
like if they were on drugs,
I hope
and
that
if they were on drugs.
Joe Biden,
Joe Biden,
and Leo
crackheads
Varadkar
confirmed.
don't do copious amounts of meth.
But that's what I
Nah.
mean. Like,
It's just
It-
it's weed.
I
if
mean,
you
like,
were trying to imagine what would happen, you just almost envision Hitler almost like if your leader started
Yeah,
taking drugs.
you
and
see,
playing
back
a
then,
button.
like, you know, people like didn't realize, I suppose, the
Jesus.
sheer like negativity of like
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
these kind of
It's like
things,
we should
because
take
like,
what Joe said into account. Maybe Hitler got hooked on drugs in art school, like like those artsy kids again, like get a bit tripped out.
No,
like.
he didn't get to art school though, did he?
no,
It was in the alley behind art school.
Yeah.
Honestly, though,
He was-
imagine you're one of the strongest superpowers in the whole world, and you start taking drugs. These drugs are very little researched, I imagine. I'm just guessing here, I don't know. And you're
especially back
taking
then.
them, and you're like the only leader in the world who has it. You'd probably feel like you are a fucking god, like, and it really does make sense.
Yeah.
For the god
So the-
complex you have.
This is why people should watch the WhatCast, because we have serious discussions about how Hitler was a meth head.
Yeah, Mikey definitely doesn't completely change the subject at all.
I wasn't talking about.
Oh, Hitler was a
was
drug
Joe,
addict at
one
art school.
Hey, yeah, man, like he could have got it. Like he could have got it behind the guy behind the art school. Like it's a possibility. It's a conspiracy theory.
Yeah,
Yes,
well,
guys.
well,
Sorry,
guys,
have some of this
let's wrap up the Hitler theory then, will we? So yeah, that was my theory that got butchered by these guys, and well, Liam, it's your turn to share what you have.
Okay,
Share your
so-
knowledge with us.
so this one was a bit new to me when I first came across it just a couple of days ago, that Pearl Harbor may be a conspiracy theory, and I never even thought of it, but the way I thought you guys reacted, you seem like, well, maybe like take a look at it.
Yeah.
But
Because I personally,
I
I
took
don't
a
know of
look
any
at it,
Pearl Harbor conspiracy theory.
Yeah, me
Neither do I.
either. Never heard of him.
and I
Something
have to
new.
say on this one, I don't buy it, but I don't buy it at all, but I do have the things that people say, but I just don't know if it's true necessarily. So one of them, and I don't know if this kind of leads a different way or can you tie it up, but that Churchill wanted that it was Churchill, and Mike, I'm sure you might know about this, but Churchill apparently tried to lead Franklin D. Roosevelt into war with him for his own gain. The Churchill, in a sense, played Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Mhm.
And do you know anything about that one, Mikey?
I'm afraid I did not.
Hmm.
Please enlighten me, Liam.
This is when you tell that Mikey's drank too much because his voice is changing a lot.
At least I'm not in the accents yet.
But basically the theory kind of revolves around a kind of like what we say like 9/11 kind of thing. It's not necessarily that Franklin planned it, I don't think.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah,
it's necessary he let it happen. And the reason they say this is because certain things like there were signs on radio transmissions intercepted by like US intelligence, but they did nothing, which is quite strange. But like personally, I don't know if it's necessarily a giveaway because back in the day, all these things were kind of new.
Mm.
But I don't know. It was the US who made like what was it these signals, right? I don't know if you call it Wi-Fi, right?
I don't think that Wi-Fi was about in
Okay.
1945.
Wi-Fi, but what would you call it?
Right, space travel, like, was a possibility.
Like radio waves? Do you mean like?
Oh, maybe-
Fucking-
No, yeah, maybe it was the British actually. I'm thinking of because the British were kind of getting like bombed by the Nazis all the time, and they tried to fight against that with the radars.
Meth head Nazi dentists invented Wi-Fi in
Oh.
my mind.
Oh, that's the best theory we've heard all
Bruh.
day.
The stream chat wasn't loading there, and I just refreshed the page, and like, literally all the comments is like Matthew and Joe speaking about wolves. It's been like,
Yeah, like moonwolves.
I see that.
oh my god, like,
Joe
Trying to have a series,
seems to think
Serious
that
discussion,
Hitler got
guys.
hooked on meth in Asheville as well.
even though they get into ours.
in all fairness,
Then
Joe would
we'll be in
believe
a more
almost
peaceful
any
place.
conspiracy theory you tell him.
Oh, wouldn't say that one.
Joe's just gonna start raging in the comments now.
Well, anyway,
Another
guys,
thing around
yeah, let's get back
this
on
theory as
topic.
well. Yeah, another thing around this theory as well, though, it might be a bit hard to mention. I'd love to bring up FDR in another time, like maybe if we're doing another conspiracy theory, we could talk about him, like with JFK and all these things, because they all seem kind of like very connected in a certain way. Another kind of idea here is that FDR wanted war with Japan and Germany. And the reason I'd like to talk about like the World War One around these things as well, because it was kind of the lead up to the Great Depression and all these things. Like, so basically the idea is the FDR wanted war with Japan and Germany because he would make a lot of money off it and have a nice big resume for after he came in. But I couldn't really
Like,
find
Being
anything.
president of the United States kind of is good for your resume anyway.
True.
True.
I mean,
But
like,
considering the
not
Great
for
Depression,
I was about to say that there's some that might not have a good
considering
resume.
Nixon.
Mm,
The Clintons.
Here, we're going too much into American conspiracy theories now, boys.
Well,
It's not
isn't
within
that your
that,
yeah.
speciality for this
Stick to the
episode?
That's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's for another time.
yeah,
But
definitely.
yeah, personally, I don't buy into this theory. Because the fact that it kind of states the fact that, like, do you know the way Franklin, Churchill, and Stalin all met up at one point? They were supposed to, like, all Mr. Hitler and all these things, like, before it even happened. So it's quite strange to me to go down that route of, oh, these were all in cahoots and they covered up these things, because these things then go to the conspiracy that, like, the Holocaust was like inflated or covered up. I don't really buy into that. But I think it would be. You could make
You're
it.
not a Holocaust denier.
Oh
Yeah.
god. We're not going there.
That's what I mean, though. It's kind of a tough one because it's almost like a JFK, like it's a landmine.
No.
Does JFK,
Well,
like-
all right. Well, we're not. This
right,
podcast
right.
does not discuss
I mean,
whether the Holocaust happened or not. Just gonna clarify that.
Happened. It was tragedy, and that's it.
But the conspiracy goes, this is the extent of it, that FDR wanted war with Japan and Germany, and Churchill led him into it, and they both basically benefited from it. And Franklin let the attack on Pearl Harbor happen so that he could go to war with Japan.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have
Alright.
went over Japan as well, found out more, but I don't really know anything about Japan at that point.
Yeah, but the reason
During
Japan
the
were
war.
basically at war in that time is because they kind of realized that, like, in like the way the rest of the world is developing, that they don't have the same level of development, because the way Japan is they didn't have like their own natural oil, so they kind of had to buy it from other countries, and they weren't able to do that. So they basically resorted to attacking other countries and taking their resources. Yeah, because I was
That's so strange,
watching a
man.
video on the Japan trials, which is basically what they done But the Japanese war crimes, they put all the people who were involved in these in trial, and basically all countries from like around the world took part in this trial, like, and like a good few were executed, a lot of people put in prison, some got away, and obviously there were like, these lasted a long time. There were people who like just naturally died, like during these trials. I think it was like 6 of them. Like they just like died outside of like within this time period, like, because like the Japanese themselves, like they did, like, I suppose a lot of these countries have in World War II. I suppose you could almost say every country has, but like, like what today would be classified as like war crimes, like, I don't know, like, I don't know what year the Geneva Convention came out, like it was before or after World War II. I'm assuming before. Does anyone have an idea on that? I'll take a look at it. But yeah.
I don't know.
I bet Google has an idea.
Yeah, I'm asking
We could
him
always
now.
trust our good friend. Google.
I think it was
Google.
1949, so this was
It's
post
so
World War
interesting,
II.
though, Gio, with Japan.
Yeah, it was 1949. That was post World War II. So yeah, so basically that was like Japan either. So basically what Japan's outcome would be is either they fall or they lose a lot and have a chance at succeeding. So they chose the lose a lot and have a chance at succeeding rather than the falling behind kind of thing.
Yeah. The convention was actually 1929.
What? Why did it say 1949?
So pre-World War II.
Okay, so yeah, pre-war. That explains the trials then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'd
I'd like to do one more thing, though.
Action in 31.
There was one more thing I wanted to mention. Now, this is just a touch on JFK. I'm just going to mention like how this kind of goes, because with the whole JFK thing, one of the ideas behind that at least, is that the CIA was basically in cahoots with the mafia at the time to get rid of their president because of the things he wanted to do.
Does this have anything to do with World War II?
Yes, but hang on. But this also comes back to all of us here in Ireland, because I don't know about this, but I've definitely talked to like at least you, Giovanni, about this before, that Hitler supposedly made deals with the IRA in Ireland at the time.
Yeah, I think that was true. That's where they were getting their weapons from. Ireland.
So to me, it kind of seems plausible that if they were dealing there, it doesn't seem too ridiculous that they could have made deals with the mafia in America too, because the Irish mafia was in America, and so was the Italian mafia. So it's quite strange to me. Like, you never know where these guns could end up. Like,
You see, basically the idea of the Nazis giving the guns to Ireland was, well, to the IRA, I suppose, was because, the IRA were essentially fighting against the British. Now, you see, was
similar.
You see, but then again, at the same time, didn't the Germans hate Ireland at the time? Because there was like a fight, like they bombed Belfast, and then there was a fire up there, and like the Dublin fire service sent the fire brigade up there.
But apparently it was because they missed Britain. I've heard both of these in my life, but apparently...
No, I'm talking about a different thing here.
Apparently... No, I think we're on about the same thing. They flew past Britain and they ended up bombing Dublin and Ireland.
No, they didn't.
During the war.
Or maybe, actually, I think they did. There was an incident.
Yeah, there was an instance of that too. Anyway, so basically Germany were then, because like Ireland kind of like described itself as a neutral country, but then again, they were helping Britain by sending the fire brigade over to Belfast from Dublin. Yeah, but you see, Ireland kind of had a way of combating that by basically put these like out of stones. They're kind of scattered all over Ireland, like so overhead planes can see it.
Yeah, that's true. They're still there. There's one in Hurry, isn't there?
Really? Whoa.
Spelled out area.
That's...
I'm pretty sure there's like one like near we live, like near the school, kind of up that direction.
So
I want to go see that, man. Oh my god, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So it's like up, I think it's up Glasgow way or something, or Luke lives. Brentlock. Oh,
They were like,
Yeah, sorry.
hopefully, two Nazi knows some fucking Irish.
Yeah, but like like it's kind of like you kind of know like each country's name in its own native language, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's all the same anyway. It's like,
Yeah.
I get it.
It's kind of like like if you like,
Latin.
it's like like even like subtitles on TV like it's written in their like national language, or like you can kind of like you have an idea of like each country's word in its national language, kind of thing. In Europe anyway, like if you've seen Polska, like you'd know it meant Poland, like. So like yeah, it's kind of like that idea, because like like there was radar towards the end of World War II, but like it wasn't there the whole time, and I don't think the Germans had it at all. If I'm correct in saying that, because it was the British that invented it. Yeah. Well, yeah. This was pretty interesting stuff. Like, I suppose I never even considered Ireland and Germany as a theory. Would have been interesting to look into.
Yeah, it would be pretty cool, but I think that's maybe as far as it'll go. Maybe I could be wrong about that.
that
Maybe
was more in the First World War, wasn't it? When Ireland was its like peak IRA.
You can only imagine though it would be the same thing up the Rebels.
Yeah.
How
Now,
much? Maybe,
what about you, Mikey?
Maybe even more.
What has your like
let's see.
research been like? Obviously, you're representing Great Britain here.
Here.
Yeah.
Before we go, I got one more thing, and I never heard of this. Right? But it was apparently a thing here. It was on September 2nd, 1945, and this is about Japan. Now, I never heard of this, and I just thought it was funny. Japan formally surrenders to the Allies marking VJ Day, although the initial announcement of surrender was made archive. So that's quite strange itself. When you mentioned Japan, like, I just wanted to point that.
Yeah. Well,
anyways.
Yeah. Anyway, Mikey, carry on.
Well, when I looked into British affairs during the World War II,
Okay, Mikey,
I discovered
calm down.
There was this kind of ties into Germany as well, and it was a man who was the third deputy to the Fuhrer, Hitler, and he took a plane. I believe the plane was called a Messerschmitt. I don't know, it's some German name. And he modified it for long distance travel, and without prior warning anyone else, he took it on the early morning on May 10th, 1941, and took it and flew across from Bavaria to Scotland. And he, once his plane ran out of fuel, he crash landed and he parachuted down to the ground, and it was by a local farmer. And when confronted, he gave a fake alias and was asked to be taken to what's called the Duke of Hamilton. Talk to him about peace treaties. But he was acting by himself, so this was a bit unusual. But there's theories that this is prior to the invasion of the Soviet Union or Russia at the time, and he was called into question for why he would abandon Hitler like that, because he's like basically a long-term friend of Hitler, being with him, and even in his regiment during the First World War. So they were very close acquaintances or even companions. But he went there with the sole purpose of pretty much betraying him, and Hitler was very distraught to find this out. But he went and he was taken into custody naturally, obviously, like the third highest ranking official in the German army at the time. And people weren't sure, like they thought he was like a bit screwy mental case as well. but he also came there in the hopes of like peace, but he was just taken into custody, and people were asked like, why would he do stuff like this? And a few theories because he was growing afraid of how radical Russia was becoming,
Mhm.
or how he believed that there'd be like too much pressure, because if one side, they were already fighting the British on one side, and if they also took on the Russians, it'd be a crushing like defeat on both sides. So he was trying to organize a truce so the war would end, but he was just taken into custody, and well, that's kind of what happened.
I never heard that one before now.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Interest.
Like that.
What
Mhm.
happened to him in the end?
I was trying to find it. He was sent to a prisoner of war camp. I think it's called Sarda, and it's unusual because you'd think a man of such with a high-ranking position would be like taken into custody and use the information against the British, but there was nothing like that done. He just kind of vanished from the face of the like basically, and he just descended into this prison camp.
Mhm.
I
Like
think
in the
it's
UK?
highly unusual. Like, yeah, in the
Right?
UK,
He killed
he
him?
died.
Like, did he die?
No, surprisingly, he wasn't executed. He was just sentenced to prison
Hmm.
for the rest of the war until I believe he lived 20 years afterwards as well.
Jeez. I never heard that one before now.
It's like
I suppose a
I
lot
was
of.
surprised to hear it as well. Like,
Oh my
really,
god! I
you'd think
pressed a
something
button and
He sounds like a friend of
I actually turned on the
Hmm?
intro.
He sounds like a friend of DB Cooper, honestly. Just this guy jumps out of a portrait and just lands in the middle of nowhere, just goes do his weird thing and he's gone.
Yeah, damn. Yeah, Gray's there, like, bro, JFK and the Holocaust question mark.
Yeah,
Mm.
I'm glad I cleared that up. I was like, we're not calling the Holocaust into question.
We should do another one though, or like other conspiracy theories, because there is quite a few more you could do, like
Yeah,
Cooper,
definitely.
JFK.
I might make it as like a
There's been-
set playlist, the conspiracy theories.
Dude, you could even
George
do another,
Bush,
you could even do another
9/11.
Germany one, like
for a long-running series of the conspiracy theories.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Hey guys, I gotta go for a second. But
Oh my god,
I'll be right
Mikey.
back. Sorry.
Okay, right,
Mikey.
guys, this is the last time Mickey's going to be on it then. The views plummeted when he starts
Oh.
speaking.
Whoa.
The views literally halved.
Ah,
Gray's actually in the comments right now.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well then, Frank, shall we
What is
move
he
back
saying?
to
Does
you?
he want us?
Well, I was just gonna say there quickly before we talk about more about Russia or whatever. Like, I think the Kirov Wolf incident is very interesting from what I've been reading. I'm not sure how much of it is made up by Misters Matthew McFadden and Joe Sharkey, but it seems very interesting. Maybe we could have them on sometime to talk about it.
Hell yeah. Sounds good.
They wanted to the moon rockets made by the time traveling Nazi dentist.
Crack addicts.
Oh yes.
Math
of course,
addicts,
Do you know what, guys? I
Math
wish we
addicts.
had fan
Also
art
math
being made
addicts, yeah.
of just like Nazi crack addict, time traveling scientists, moon rocket people. I want to see that. Like,
Don't forget dentists.
yeah, man,
Yeah, very good.
dentists.
Dentists.
Yeah, kind of funny.
Maybe
Like,
if you-
Be interesting.
Surgeons too.
you throw in all the like describing words.
Matthew
the world,
McFadden has graciously offered to talk about wolf theories next week, so that could be to look forward to.
Dogs, wolves. on the moon, cats on the moon too.
Yeah, even without any
That's a
wall
bit far
Was it dog?
pictures,
fetched.
yeah.
That's a far fetched.
It was a dog that went to the moon first, like a dog or a chimpanzee. Right.
Not to the moon, but to space.
It was a dog. It was a Russian
Russian-
dog, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet there's a conspiracy theory there somewhere.
His name must have been Pluto.
Well, guys, shall we keep on topic here?
Yeah.
Well, Frank, do you have any other
Yeah.
conspiracy theories to tell us
I
about
think that's
the
probably
Soviet
one.
Union?
Not particularly conspiracies. Now that the Russian sleep experiment was the biggest one that I stumbled across in my when I was like researching this through the week. There are some interesting things. Like one that I thought was particularly interesting was there was a spy. I'm just gonna look from I know for his name here. Called Richard. Now his name is Sorge, Sorge. I don't know if that's pronounced differently. He was a German who became a communist. Anyway, and he established spy networks in Germany, China, and Japan. And he was posing as a Nazi member and a journalist in Japan. I think it was Tokyo. And he was in Japanese high command, and he actually informed Stalin of the exact date that Hitler would invade the Soviet Union. And Stalin actually ignored this information and was caught unprepared by the attack, which of course was devastating for the Soviet Union. I think like 10 million Russian soldiers were killed
Mhm.
in World War II,
Wow.
which is insane. It's
I said like between the 30
a
and
massive
60
amount
million
more than
people
died
killed.
on
That's
the
a massive like chunk of those deaths. You
yeah.
could say.
So the like the amount of Russians that were actually killed is insane. Like compared, because you hear about the Allies winning the war, or when D-Day happened, and that kind of when they started pushing the Germans back. But in reality, the Russians lost 10 million soldiers, and up to like estimates are up to 15 million civilians.
Hmm.
In contrast to that, the US only lost about 400,000 troops in the wars in Europe and the Pacific, so that was against Japan as well. And Britain lost 240,000 soldiers, along with 60,000 civilians during the Blitz, and that kind of thing. All right, sorry. Just on the spinny chair here. So 408,000 American troops, 244,000 British troops, right? And I mean that's still a massive amount of people, but 10 million Russian troops and 3 million German soldiers were killed on the Eastern Front alone. So that kind of puts into perspective the scale of the war on the Eastern Front as opposed to the Western Front that we would hear more about, like in our history courses and that kind of thing. So when I was reading that, I mean, it's not a conspiracy theory really, but it's just interesting that
Shocking.
I never realized the extent of how much more death and bloodshed was going on the Eastern Front.
Yeah, when he was
Especially, I think
moving his way all at Stalingrad, like exactly.
Yeah, Stalingrad was a big victory for the Russians that turned the tide of the war. Like,
yeah, that was pretty much what changed everything. Like,
to go back to Richard Sorge, sorry for butchering his name. He also learned the date for the Pearl Harbor attack. You know, you were talking earlier about Taberlane.
Yeah.
And he informed the Soviet Union. He informed Stalin that Japan had no plans to invade the Soviet Union. So, 250,000 Soviet soldiers stationed near Japan in Siberia got transferred to their Western Front, which was the Eastern Front of the war, to help in the fight against the Nazis, which also arguably was a big reason that the tide of the war changed. They were able to bring these troops in because this man, Richard Sorge, was able to find out that the Japanese had no plans to attack Soviet Russia. So, I mean, massive historical figure, and like to have been aware of these things before they happened. Now he was killed. The Japanese found out he was a spy and had killed after that. But yeah,
Hmm.
Richard Sorge, an
So
important name.
yeah, like considering that's like a name we've never heard, like well personally anyway.
Hmm.
It's
And,
that kind of makes me think
I
of.
actually, sorry, Joanne.
No, oh no, carry on.
I took down a note there, Liam, when you were talking. Saying, do you know how the Americans found out about Pearl Harbor, whatever, but didn't act or whatever
Yeah.
because they wanted to go into the war?
Mm-hmm.
Similar thing there. With Stalin ignoring the information given to him by the spies because he didn't believe it, and
Yeah.
was unprepared, resulting in 15 million. No, I mean maybe not directly, but 15 million civilian deaths and 10 million soldier deaths. It's kind of insane.
Another
On not acting on
contributing factor to the reason of the disorganization of the bloody army was all the generals were killed in the
Yeah,
in
that's
Russia.
true. But also, one of the most esteemed generals of World War II was General Georgy Zhukov, who was the Russian general, and his achievements were in Russia were kind of mental as well. He was everywhere, planning. Let me see. The great Soviet victories in places like I can't name any of these places, but Uman, Vitebsk, Kovel, and Bendery, and the great Soviet commanders Konev, Chukov, and the great Marshal Georgy Zhukov have largely been forgotten. But these were the generals who won the war almost on the Eastern Front, and you don't hear much about them, especially in we have a very westernized history syllabus here in Ireland, like, but
Yeah, it's very interesting. You see, this guy's story kind of, I don't know, it just kind of reminds me of, it's not really to do with World War II, it's kind of more the Cold War, but basically these Russian submarines, like, you know, they're placed all over the world in the oceans, and they're kind of just there waiting dormant, ready to, like, launch their nukes. And basically what happened, something happened, and they lost, like, basically, like, this was during like the peak of the Cold War when it was like most likely something was going to happen, but yet they like lost radio communication, and basically these guys were like seconds from like pressing that button when like someone came and was like, oh no, yeah, there was basically, it took 3 people to turn the keys to launch the nuke, but it was because like they were ready there to do it. They were trying to encourage the other guy to do it. And like he was simply just refusing to do it, and like that's kind of like that prevented like what essentially would have been doomsday. It's just kind of reminded me of
the
that.
Cuban Missile Crisis that you were talking about.
No. No, it's just the Cold War when like you're like how they had the nuclear submarines scattered all over the world ready to launch nukes, like ICBMs.
Oh, why was it?
Intercontinental ballistic missiles. I don't know the guy's name, but like he refused to turn the key because like, you know, he didn't have enough evidence when the other 2 generals were like, they were like, you know, like they had their keys turned, like
Revving to go, hey.
Yeah. It just kind of reminded me of that almost.
I was thinking of that too, Giovanni.
Yeah. I just kind of remember that off the top of my head, like.
Interesting fun fact. We just found out the name of the first dog to go to space. It was Laika, Lika. Thanks
Bad
to
naming.
Matthew McFadden in the comment section for offering up that information.
Hey
Definitely
guys,
Pluto.
can we just
Matthew
acknowledge
McFadden.
that like when Mikey was, the viewers dropped to 5, and then as soon as Frank started speaking, it's back up to like 10.
Let's not
Thanks.
acknowledge that.
Giovanni, great
I-
confidence.
I chat more nonsense. I chat more nonsense than anyone else here. I think I'm the only person who told a conspiracy theory that was revealed to be complete nonsense at the end. So I think we're all in this together, lads.
I talk about Britain.
We could have done or France at some point as well, but we could save it for other times.
Yeah, of course. Sure, Mickey, you're the only one. Sure, Mickey. Sorry, no.
Mickey.
Right.
I resent that.
Giovanni.
Actually, Frank's position as well.
Right. Okay. That's the end of that. I'm not going to accept. I don't accept
Okay,
that.
okay.
We'll
and,
find out
we're not
this
talking about
conspiracy
that
theory
anymore.
next
We're
time.
moving on.
Okay, right. So back to Germany then. So I have this. It's again, this one isn't so much a conspiracy theory, but at the same time, it kind of is. It's kind of half and half. Like it's half proven. So obviously the Germans had massive amounts of gold, and they had like some of the like they were holding on to like some like the most expensive artwork in the world, all this kind of stuff. And basically this kind of links up to, and there's kind of like two in one conspiracy theories. This one, they kind of link to each other. But basically the Germans, they were making these extremely high quality counterfeit British pound banknotes. Like they were making them to kind of like destabilize the British economy, create inflation by like slowly
Yeah.
trickling in these notes into their society. Like they were so high quality, like only like an expert could like differentiate them. Now basically,
Giovanni, this is interesting because hang on, there was someone called George Sway. What he tried to do one time is he tried to crash the pound. His name is George Soros, and he tried to crash the British pound one
Yeah.
time, but also
yeah, sure, the
very
North
creepy
Koreans were
guy
doing the same
because
with the American
he used to
dollar.
be a
They were
Nazi.
counterfeiting it.
But hang on. It gets
Yeah.
weirder because he used to be a Nazi. And in one interview, when someone asked him about it, like, how was it? He just described it as like it was easy money or something like that. Like that's like he didn't really look back on it with shame. He kind of looked back on it with a certain pride, and it's strange to see that. That interview will be a little bit hard to find, but definitely get it. Oh yeah, there's George Soros. And that's just weird you mentioned that to me, because like it appears like maybe there was more Nazis doing it.
Yeah. So, well, anyway, the Germans like had these massive bunkers of like literally filled with gold. Like I seen pictures of them.
And artwork.
Yeah, they had everything, artifacts, everything that they were like taken from these countries that they raided, and they were hiding them in bunkers. Like
Everywhere where they were in.
yeah, like I was looking
They
at this
love
picture of like it was like inside.
As well.
Oop.
Anyway, I was looking like at this picture. It was like inside a salt mine, and like an ex-salt mine that they converted into a bunker, and like it was just these like money-looking bags, just filled with money, filled with gold, like gold bars, just like probably about the size of like a school sports hall kind of thing. Well, anyway, in Austria, 40 miles from Salzburg, there's a lake called Lake Toplitz. This lake was used by the Germans to test various like torpedoes, watercrafts. It's not an extremely large lake, but like it was a long straight line kind of shaped it. But this lake, basically the theory was that the Germans, at the end of the war, they dumped like large amounts of like, let's just say treasure, as in like this money, this painting. We'll just call it treasure for simplicity. They dumped it all into this lake, and basically what happened was, in kind of like late 1940s, people going to visit the lake, going on a walk, like the only way to get up to this lake is a small dirt road that you have to hike up. It's kind of more of a path really than a road. But like on the side of the lake, these British banknotes started washing up onto the water, and people in the city, like who walked from the city to walk to that lake, whatever, they were bringing these notes to the bank, trying to cash them in, and the bank's like, where are you getting this British money from? Because like there was a few people doing it, and the banks were getting suspicious, and eventually people started admitting that like this money was washing up on the lake. And this lake it's not just like simple just water in a lake. This lake is kind of 2 layers. The top layer of the water is fresh water, but once you go down about 60 feet, it's extremely salty and little no oxygen, like no like sorry, got a hiccup there. Like no fish or microbes or anything can live in it. It's just it doesn't have the environment for that to happen. So basically, obviously, of that, oh, I don't know where it is, but there's that. What's the saltiest lake in the world called, or sea? It's like where you can lie on it and you just float
Dead Sea?
extremely well. But yeah,
The
yeah, the Dead Sea, isn't it?
Dead Sea, I think.
Yeah, well, basically, that's kind of the same when you go 60 feet under. It's just so salty, which makes it extremely hard for divers to go down, like, because, it's just so buoyant that, like, a regular diving suit can't really go through it. But yeah, and because no microbes can obviously survive in there, that means, like, any branches or anything that falls into the water doesn't decompose. So, like, over these years, these like branches, whatever falls into the water isn't decomposing, so it's basically building a layer. It's like all this treasure is basically now is kind of like buried, and it's extremely hard to find. Like, it is generally acknowledged as
No
there.
oxygen underwater.
Yeah, water can have oxygen in it,
Giovanni,
Mikey.
Giovanni, I looked into this, right? And like after you told me about this the other day, I was so surprised. I looked into it, and it turns out they actually put a 99-year ban and dive for people diving in this lake. And
Yeah, like
Lake Dopa is
it's really
or
dangerous.
topless. Yeah, well, they basically put a 99-year ban on diving there, which is just kind of quite funny to me, I think.
Well, yeah. So anyway, so like in 1947, these U.S. Navy SEAL divers, they were attempting to extract the money from the lake, and one of them died, so they gave up. And the exact same thing happened in 1950 to a German engineer. But in 1959, like these group of German divers spent 5 weeks, which is quite some time to be diving, and they found these wooden metal chests, filled with like millions of pounds of like it'd be wooden metal is made out of. Yeah, they found them filled with millions of like these counterfeit notes and various other, like, I suppose you could say, artifacts and stuff in it. And then I suppose after that they gave up because it wasn't really worth it for them. And yeah, it's just kind of mad to think that this is all still there. Like, I suppose in theory anyone can just go, like, if they have experience, could go there. I'm not suggesting anyone to do it, but like, it's there.
Yeah.
And yeah, but anyway,
Let's get a submarine.
what these British pounds anyway, it was basically
Hunting for some
Get a
nasty
submarine.
gold.
it was called Operation Bernard, which it was like it's often described as like the Germans bombing the UK without actual bombs. It was an estimated 133 million pounds. And like obviously there's a lot of stuff in that lake, and it's just near impossible for people to get. Some parts of the lake is 300 feet deep at the deepest bits, like.
Fuck.
It's just like unbelievable to think that like there's gold, like, and treasure, like, that you could like literally your whole family could be rich for like generations to come, and just no one can get it.
Shamelessly self-promoting this lake.
Sponsored by Lake Toplets. I had to like read it there to pronounce it because I don't remember the name off by heart. But yeah, that's kind of like a half conspiracy theory.
Liam?
What did you
Any
say, Frank?
thoughts on that, Liam? Any thoughts on that?
I find it quite strange.
It is strange.
Just
I know.
it's even weirder as well, the fact that they made it legal to go there for like 99 years. Kind of weird.
Is it?
I mean, if
it's not
people
like-
are dying,
Is
I
it?
don't know,
Is
like
it
10
the
years
more
from now.
I know, but
toxic?
they'd make so much profit, can't you? I think the government would just be in and be like, let's get this Nazi gold, boys. And just
No,
make
Mikey,
profit. Like,
it's not necessarily the water is toxic.
Well,
It's
they're
this
kinda-
water was used for like military testing. So like there could be like undetonated torpedoes in the water still.
I see.
Still, though, do you not think like
Oh, nice.
some people who know about it will go in here and try and get like if they're
Maybe they already did.
People
Liam.
try, but
Hot
it's
take.
undiveable because the water's so buoyant.
mm.
You
But
just
I
need,
don't know,
like,
other
a
thing as well.
water
This is World War One, but I had to mention it, man. There was a thing called Starfish Prime. It was basically the US shot a bunch of nukes up into the atmosphere because they're trying to heat up the Earth. Like, that's fucking
Yes.
insane, man. Operation Starfish Prime. I don't know why these things have such silly names, but that's what it is.
Hmm.
And they basically just try to detonate multiple nukes in the sky to change the atmosphere, like, and they give it a
That
fucking
just
shot,
sounds
like.
like America causes global warming with extra steps.
You ever heard of Snow?
Yeah.
That sounds like the plot of Snowpiercer.
Mm,
Yeah.
such a good
Quality
show.
film.
John Bean's in that now. Oh, spoiler alert. Mikey, you were talking to me earlier about Enigma, weren't you? I was wondering if you had anything on that, because like personally I'm interested in the topic. If you
Yeah,
had
I
any-
was gonna look into Enigma myself personally, but because Mikey was saying he's gonna do it, I was like, okay, I'll leave it for Mikey.
What is Enigma? Is that the plane?
Enigma? No,
No.
it's not a plane. It's
It's
a machine.
Well, no, Enigma was like a encryption that the Germans used, where basically every day the word would change, like a key word to decrypt it was changed, and basically it took ages for
Yeah,
the
and-
British to crack it.
and when they did crack it, basically, go on, Mikey.
Anyways, isn't it? I was just gonna say, isn't Liam's turn first?
Oh, I thought Liam was talking there. Oh, I forgot about the order. Whatever, whoever's.
Well, Joe, we may as well just
Talking.
continue with
Somebody
Mikey
needs to
now that
talk
we've
to
talked
him.
about it.
Doesn't matter. Like,
See,
Yeah.
let me just leave my notes.
I was thinking of something there called Enola. When Mikey said Enigma, I mixed up something called Enola there.
So
Hmm.
Nola.
It was Enola was the
Nola
name
Holmes.
of no, it was the plane name of the bomb, or sorry, the plane that dropped. Which one was it? Now let me see. It was the plane that dropped the nuke on Hiroshima. I don't know if that's Big Boy, or sorry,
Man
what is
and
it?
Little
What is
Boy.
the name again?
Fat Man and Little Boy.
Let's see. We'll find out.
Well,
What?
yeah.
Hmm.
Well, Mikey, do you wanna?
Yeah, so it was
you wanna
Enola
talk-
Gay was the name of the plane that dropped Little Boy on Hiroshima.
Hmm.
That's it.
All right. So, would you like to talk more about the machine Enigma itself, or would you like to know about what happened in Britain using the machine?
Well,
Both.
yeah.
Well, I don't know about everyone else, but personally, the machine itself. I mean, I've seen the film.
Yeah.
Uh,
It wasn't a
Enigma
computer
was
now,
like
Mikey. It wasn't
uh,
a computer, it was analog.
no, I'm not saying the Enigma machine itself. I'm talking about the Turing machine. It was a computer-like mechanism that Alan Turing made to decipher.
Yeah, yeah.
The
That's what I'm
Enigma.
on about. It wasn't a
That's what-
computer, it was
Yeah.
analog. Just like because we were having like that discussion earlier. Just thought I'd put it out there for everyone.
Well, was like the basis for like what computers would be like someday.
Was yeah, it was one of the first machines that could massive computation, wasn't it? That was the
Mhm.
Yeah, like, yeah.
the its historical significance. So it was kind of a precursor. But I think actually computers existed before that, didn't they? Was it Charles Babbage and Ada Lovelace? Didn't they come up with something that became the computer prior to Turing's? What did he call it? Christopher. Christopher was the name of the machine.
Yeah, it's
wasn't it?
the name of his well, not his lover, but his best friend from childhood. And turning this man, he's literally a hero that got treated like a villain. It's like disgraceful what happened to this man.
He was chemically castrated, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Along
because
those lines.
of his like sexuality, just because he liked men. Anyways,
It's
he was
shocking how things were in that time.
he was like recruited into this program, and it was him with a bunch of other researchers, and he basically had to invent this machine to decipher codes that the Nazis use, and there was this method of doing it, but it was like very insignificant. Like, not sure the exact name of the method, but it was basically their team working tirelessly for like days on end, just trying to get simple codes.
Yeah,
It could be something
basically,
simple like
because it changed every
like
day.
a
They had-
post change.
They had 24 hours to crack it, and then it changed.
So the only possible way to like maybe actually solve it, they had to use this beam that Alan Turing invented that would constantly like change, would help with the ever changing enigma, as it were. And it went on to like inspire a film. Like, it's not much of a conspiracy theory anymore, but like it was it went on to become film. I believe some of you might be familiar with it. It's called The Imitation Game.
Yeah.
I definitely would recommend it.
What I thought was mental about it was no one thought about it at all. No one knew anything about it until it was declassified. The fact, like, I thought this was the most interesting thing was they had cracked Enigma, so they had known where the Germans would attack in that.
Oh yeah.
But they didn't act. They didn't act on everything they found. They needed the Germans to not know that they had cracked it, and this led to the deaths of people who, well, could have been prevented, but
Yeah,
in the
but
long run,
it was
so
like
it's a really
it's kind of more like the greater good kind of thing. Like, you gotta lose some lives to save more lives. It's just a
So
shame
it's-
because like when they first deciphered it, when it first worked for the first time, as Turing's machine, it's unfortunate because one of the researchers that were on the team with him, his brother was stationed on a naval vessel that was set to be targeted, and they couldn't
Wow.
like
And he was
send him
killed.
any prior warning. So basically, he just had to like allow his brother to die, which is like tragedy. Like, and
yeah,
I was
that
reading
in
something earlier
the
prior,
film, wasn't it? Yeah.
yeah, about Churchill and an attack on city. I'm not sure what the city was called, but it was a major city during World War II period, and people were calling him out back then. Like, they're saying him and other high-ranking officials knew about it, yet they didn't act to change it. It was later ruled after discovery and like declassification of the Enigma files that it was found that like they knew it, but like they couldn't do anything to change it. Like, when you think about it, like they could have done something. Like it's
Well,
hard
I
to do that.
think
Like,
the decision was made. I think when Enigma was cracked, the I'm not entirely sure the time frame now, but I think the Allies were still on the back foot. Like, they weren't getting the better. No, I might be wrong here. My time frame might be off.
Yeah,
But
it was.
if they had allowed Germans to change Don Giovanni,
Yeah, it was basically this was
Ivan?
happening was when the Royal Air Force was like absolutely on its lowest. Like they were losing so many aircraft. This kind of links up to when they were recruiting Polish,
it was kind of
the Polish fighter pilots and the RAF. That kind of helped as well after the Enigma. I'm not going to get into it, but yeah, recruiting Polish fighter
for
pilots.
another day. And then
yeah. There's a lot to go on here for
like,
a future podcast, maybe.
like, after the war and
Absolutely.
everything as well, they weren't even credited for their work because no one could know that like what they'd done. Like it was a secret code. Like, and if they'd ever needed another war, they needed to keep the secret to themselves. So they had to take everything they'd done and destroy it afterwards. So all the fruits of their labor basically just gone like that.
Yeah.
Here, while we're on the topic of tragedies, do it fucking. I think one of the darkest things in the war, even though it's not. I don't know. I think this is just like the photos that came from these things are just so fucked. That's what I'm about to tell you now. There was these things called nuclear shadows, and these were made after
Oh, yeah.
nukes were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So basically what happened here is because the UV rays would be so fucking bright and it would burn the person like gone, the only thing that would be left is literally their shadow. So it would literally crispen their shadow on the floor.
Well,
print
that's
there.
not how it
Was
happened. But yeah.
It is
It's
though.
basically
It is though.
because
Like literally
the
wherever
body's
you were.
physically blocking the light from going through. It's like kind of just like
Yeah.
not as burnt there. That's how that works.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly actually. But there's a lot of famous photos from these things. Like one of the most famous is like the lunch girl and a girl in the shadow, like just what's left of shadow, like, and it's like, oh man, that's so fucked.
War is a fucking terrible thing.
Think we can agree on that.
Yeah, I think anyone can.
This just fucking blew me away one time when I learned about it. Like,
Hitler loved war. Anyways,
Yeah.
should we return to Frank? Let's hear some more about the Soviet Union, shall we?
No, it's Liam's turn.
Or is
Yeah,
All right.
Liam didn't go there, I don't think.
well,
Yes.
it's all right. But yeah, I don't mind. Someone else can take over if they want to speak. But I just thought it was important to mention that there.
No, but like your actual like cues,
like-
like you know, it's your cue. Like
you skip me?
All right, way to
skip
put me
you,
on the
and then
fucking spot there, motherfucker.
destroying the natural order.
It's okay, Liam.
Yeah, well, I guess around that I could mention the fucking Manhattan
Manhattan Project.
Project. Might be a bit obvious. Might be a bit obvious to a lot of use, but this was when Einstein and all these people came together, and the Manhattan Project was the meeting that decided and basically they created the nuclear bomb, giant of a nuclear bomb.
see, Einstein,
In the Marvel
fled
universe, when they
Germany.
created
Oh, see,
Captain America.
Like Einstein being a Jew, he
I
fled
just wanna
Germany to
clarify
America.
Something there. I don't think Einstein actually had a direct role in the Manhattan Project. I think he influenced.
Sure. Mm.
Yeah, he influenced his work, but he didn't play a direct role in the Manhattan Project. He was a pacifist, I think, or something along those lines. So he didn't want to be involved in the war, so he didn't get security clearance to be involved on the Manhattan Project.
It was just interesting
So
how
that's
his
just
name came up to even begin with. Like,
It
I
was
thought-
Robert Oppenheimer was the lead man. I believe. I'm not up to date on my knowledge of the Manhattan Project, but I think it was J. Robert. Is it? J. Robert Oppenheimer was the lead man. Anyway, carry on, Liam. Just wanted to clarify that.
Hold on, guys. Pause a
Yeah,
minute. Pause a minute, guys.
you for clearing
Pause.
that up.
Pause. Okay, carry on.
Everyone, pause. Everyone, call.
Yeah, stream
Right.
died there for a
Go.
second. You can carry on.
Right, go
Liam,
on.
on you go.
You see, this one kind of drifts off a bit, but there's a song that makes me think of too. It's called Atomic Misphilosophy, and it's the idea that the atomic bomb was actually a terrible idea.
You don't say.
I'm just wondering what you think of that. Like,
It's not completely a
Yeah, I know,
terrible
but,
idea.
like, that's what I mean. It's controversial. Like, is the atomic bomb a good a bad thing, or just neutral?
It depends what you like. As a good, if you want Japan out of the war, yes.
Yeah, like,
Hiroshima and Nagasaki weren't 70,000 people killed instantly when
Yeah.
the nuclear bomb was dropped on Hiroshima.
yeah, and God knows how many were
yeah,
killed
I mean,
afterwards from radiation
people.
poisoning and related
Innocent
sickness.
Yeah, it's say
Yeah,
the
and
bad outweighs the
it's
good.
The thing, it's
Well,
yeah, so
actually,
like good idea to get Japan out of the war, like, but
But
Well,
actually, when you
moral
no,
consider it as
standpoint,
well, like
no,
I'm
right?
thinking about like soldiers that would
that's
die.
what I mean. Like,
Yeah,
went on.
it's almost the idea. It's a war crime to even use one of these weapons, a
well,
nuclear
guys,
bomb. Because
I
yes,
have a good
cancelled
point
the
here.
fuck out of Japan during the war.
You
Okay.
can kind of
What,
compare this
Giovanni?
to Mikey's Enigma. Well, as in, he was talking about the Enigma, how like they kind of like
Mhm.
let some of these attacks
Mhm.
slide for the greater good. You can kind of think of the nuclear
Yeah,
bomb as the
yeah.
same thing. Like, of course, 70,000 people killed instantly. Terrible tragedy, like 100%. Like, that's horrible. But like, think about like, God knows how many would have died if this war continued.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
yeah,
Honda,
like
it just
I think you are right there, Giovanni, and we could
But
argue
more
all
Russian.
day about
Yeah, yeah.
the moral of it, the morals of it.
Sure.
But I think the actual efficiency, like a nuclear bomb, it definitely stopped the war in the Pacific. That can't be.
yeah,
Can't be
I'm
denied,
absolutely
it's
like
a
I
fact.
100% agree. It stopped Japan. It cancelled them out of the war. But it's just the idea, like, if you want to cancel someone out of war like that, you just drop 2 nukes on like their civil. Like, even if you think Germany, right? Maybe we didn't need Germany, and some people think like we fucking should have or whatever. But problem is, there's loads of civilians, and you can't just drop a nuke on fucking civilians, man. But that's as you drop them on civilians.
You could argue, Giovanni,
Hey,
as
you
well on your side that it was for the greater good. That
Yeah, like,
the
I'm not saying it's
reason that
my
the
side, but
Cold
that's just
War
like a
didn't
valid
kick off,
point.
or no, I know. But the reason the Cold War never escalated point of actually dropping nukes and that was because of the devastation caused.
Hmm.
So they had that example to say, okay, this is what happens. We don't want to go, and maybe that is why. Now,
'Cause,
this is
like-
speculation. It didn't happen,
like,
so
If
you can't say for sure. But maybe that was a.
Speculation's all part of conspiracy theories.
it's like if one bomb got dropped in the Cold War, it would have led a chain reaction of like, let's say America sent one to Russia. Russia would send all of theirs to America, and America would do the same back. Like,
Yeah.
like I forget the word, but it's like
Yeah.
total something
Nuclear
destruction,
winter.
It's mutually
assured destruction.
yeah.
That's it.
Exactly, Frank.
Yeah, that's the word I was thinking of.
It's kind of like the only. It's basically the only thread that stopped the thing, because it's like, well, if you destroy us, we'll destroy you, and if you destroy us, we'll destroy you. And that's what stopped them from doing it.
Yeah.
That's kind of kept like what's it called
Sorry, Mike, are you
Peace.
speaking into a glass right
threat
now?
of nuclear war. I was just saying, no, sorry. It's like it does kind of prevent like in this modern day and age, like if anyone uses a nuke, like anyone at all, like it's just going to be complete and utter chaos. So I think
Yeah.
seeing the devastation of an atom bomb in the Second World War, like it just shows like the atrocities that would happen if that would happen like on a global scale.
Yeah.
The thing I'm gonna mention as well is the reason I think it's so fucked is because, like, you gotta think, right? We bombed these Japan civilians, right? But let's say it was Germany, right? Let's say the US was like, we're gonna nuke Germany because Hitler is there, right? And that's what they were thinking instead. The only thing is, if them people, like, even up until Berlin was surrounded, the German army was saying that, oh, we're winning the war and all this stuff. Like, they were feeding the people propaganda that just wasn't true. They were saying and stuff, and they were actually losing it. Like, all these things. So it's kind of weird you could drop a nuke on civilians that might not even know any better. Like, you know, it's kind of like Vietnam. Like when people seen the troops coming in from there, they thought they were there to help, but it wasn't the case, man. So
Yeah.
I just think it's kind of fucked in that way. Like, I
Yeah,
guess you could say it was a
like-
wee bit of revenge, but it's just and it's just so awful and like civilians and shit. Like, not fair. That's just what war is, I guess. That would be war. I was asking someone the other day, what is the definition of war? And it's like maybe it's the two parties being a conflict, because that really wouldn't work because if we had different philosophies, we're a conflict but we're not at war, you know what I mean? I think what makes war is the civilians. It's the civilians who die that make the war. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was just talking to us about someone.
Yeah.
I mean, like, like
Yeah,
everyone kind of agrees that war is a terrible thing, but like war at the end of the day is inevitable, unless it's like a fictional world. Like in reality, like, that's
I have a
just how
saying-
humans
Or
work.
Or a utopian world that we strive for, Giovanni. To get
Exactly.
philosophical.
No, let's not get communist there, Frank, alright?
I just said a utopia. I didn't say a communist utopia. Sorry that
No, you see, he said
capitalist
we,
utopia,
and that's kind
maybe?
of sus.
I
Yeah, that's sus.
I said we. Yes. I'm sorry that we should all look out for ourselves.
You said we
personal
again, Frank.
profits.
Fuck's sake.
Yeah,
What
I
we talking
love
about?
capitalism.
Like communist amongst us boys, like Jesus Christ,
God.
getting heated in here, like
I'm not a
talking about
communist.
capitalism. Yay!
But yeah,
Anyway, we'll have
that's
that
very
argument
interesting.
another day, Liam.
That's all very
we should
interesting.
definitely do a fun topic.
I also have another one from Germany. I haven't looked into it as much. Like, I don't have as much info, so right now for me it's kind of like just a small one. Basically, this was first reported by a newspaper in like a Catholic run newspaper, like by the Catholic Church, called Avoni, where Hitler had a plot to kidnap Benedict the 16th. Basically, the idea was that like Hitler was going to like end like Christianity as a whole, because he was basically planning to create his own like religion, to like, you know, like a literally like a Hitler worshipping religion, like the Aryan race, however you want to put it, like. And yes, like that was just pretty crazy, like, because obviously like, the Vatican, like the Catholic Church and the Vatican have massive power all over the world. Like, they're such a large influence on, what is it, like 1 billion people currently? Probably more. And just like that would have
They
been
get to go off the banks as well.
Yeah, like for Hitler, like taking control of those people would be like for Germany a massive
He did.
like, advantage. Like, yeah, of
He
course
did.
he did, but like
He met with the Pope.
with this theory is that he was going to kidnap the Pope and try end Christianity like there and then.
Didn't Christianity endorse fascism in Germany? I might be wrong. Didn't the, not Christianity? Sorry, the Catholic Church. I might be wrong, but
Was it?
I don't know.
I'm sure they made a deal or something to do with the papal bull. Which-
I know papal bull was well, there's multiple papal bulls maybe, but it's just that I know in Spain when the fascist leader General Franco began taking over in Spain, the Catholic Church definitely supported him, and he was a fascist. I'm not sure now about Hitler and Germany, but I don't know. It's an interesting.
He hated Christianity so much.
Did he?
Well, then again, you can think, why did he hate the
fair
Jewish
enough.
people so much?
Did he?
Yeah, he did, Mickey.
Because those are rich assholes.
Because I don't know if you remember, but he killed like 6 million of them.
I didn't say that. I was talking about Christianity, lads.
He asked that after I said Jews.
I know he hates the Jews.
You see, Christianity comes from Judaism, like,
True.
so that's kind of strange, man. And then even capitalism kind of derives from Catholicism then itself.
No, it doesn't come from Christianity. It comes from Catholicism.
I literally just said that word. What are you talking about?
I'm pretty sure you said
All right. This isn't a religious
Thoughts?
debate, boys. I'm sure we'll have.
A lot of
Couldn't be
wars
the
around the world are
gods.
caused by religion.
Oh yeah,
True.
it was. Giovanni, I seen a slight thing there. I didn't look at it at all, but it was kind of like Hindu god Hitler thing. You see anything with that?
Sorry?
No,
Oh,
that
I
sounds
think it's
like
oh,
a
it's kind of
conspiracy if you've ever heard one.
Oh no,
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 seriously,
no,
like,
no.
when I started off researching this, like one of the first things I went into is like World War II conspiracies, and there was one that was like Hitler as a Hindu god or something, and he was a reincarnation of Vishnu or something. It was some very
The Hindu religion is called the Destroyer, so that might be plausible.
yeah. I'm not sure what it was, but I can show you like after the stream or whatever, and I can show you. Maybe we can talk about it in another episode, anyways, when you know a bit more about it.
Yeah,
we should
and
definitely do a
just
stream of
for
apology.
to keep the continued thread of the wolves on the moon going. We have a question from one anime holic in the comment section, and it's what's the population of the wolves on the moon now? Liam and Giovanni, if
I
you
say
want
it's
to
got to be at
add
least
anything there.
7, but no more than 8.
I have this one like
No more
here.
than 8. But
At least
7,
7,
I
but no more than
also
8.
would say that's a ballpark number. Yeah, I have no.
I know. There's like quite a large gap
I have
between
no
them, but
evidence to say that isn't true.
So that might be plausible.
Yeah, well, it's,
I'm not sure.
we're
Right,
we're
we're
gonna cover the wolf conspiracy right here, right now,
Like it-
right?
It's conspiracy.
Wolves, wolves are associated with the moon. Why do you think the moon? The moon is associated with the sea. Therefore, wolves control the sea, which means the wolves control the oxygen, which means the wolf controls. There you go, conspiracy covered.
Boom.
True.
Well, Liam, that's not really conspiracy because everybody knows that information is true. We all know as we've been told in our comments section, that the wolves strive to make it back to outer space, and they will control us to any means until that happens. Pointed out, this may get taken down. That wolves became dogs. They overtook evolution to become dogs to befriend humans because they knew humans could help them get back to the moon. I mean, this isn't conspiracy theories, boys. This
Oh
is
my god, it all adds up.
Pause on the moon. Pause on the moon, boys.
Pause on the moon.
Well, guys,
Yeah.
does anyone have any other World War II related conspiracy theories they want to talk about?
I suppose if we discount Nazi dentists, I'm all out.
Of course. Yeah, I'm all out too. I think this is a good place to end it.
Frank, before we go though, I'd like to add a touch on that. So about the wolves here.
Fuck's sake.
No.
Basically, this all adds up. See, and it all adds up because the wolves are in collusion with the Nazis on the moon in space, and that's why they like to go to Antarctica too.
Oh,
Yeah.
Because wolves like
Can I
gold.
try to have a proper theory if you just want to hear it?
Go for it.
It's about Edward the Eighth of Britain.
Expected this coming.
He was. See, he didn't want to marry into royalty like most of the, like this kind of a tradition, old-fashioned tradition that has been broke in these day and age. Meghan Markle. But there was a woman called Willis Summers, I believe, or something like that, some summary name, and they had an affair, and they'd married, but people looked down upon them because
The drop in
he was
views right
next
now,
in
holy
line.
shit.
Just end it, man.
no, Mikey.
No.
Yeah, keep it on
What
the
are you
books,
saying?
sir.
Carry on, Mike. He's only went from 11 down to
Well,
7, but don't worry.
Basically, it's like I lost my train of thought. Just fuck it, I guess. Leave it.
So they had an affair, and what was it? He fell out of favor with the royal
With
family
the-
then, and he was like,
Yeah,
right,
and he decided
yeah,
rather than taking
So-
the throne, he decided to abdicate, and he went with his mistress and began traveling around Europe. and he traveled to many places. Yep. He also sympathized with the fascist ideology. There was a man called Oslo Mosley. He was part
Oslo
of the fascist party. Yeah, he was part
Peaky
of the fascist party in
of
Britain at the
Peaky
time.
Blinders
Yeah.
fame.
Of Peaky Blinders. And he was a conspirator during the war, in the wars, to help influence fascism in Germany and in Britain. And people believed that he was working along with the Nazis, of course. So he was ostracized by the government, of course.
Is your
And
family not going to say hi,
once-
Mickey?
One.
Are they not going to say hi?
Nah. We're a bit busy right now. They're playing a quiz.
I know, I can hear it.
So once he'd abdicated the throne, he'd left it to his brother George, of course, and he's notorious for having a speech impediment. I believe you might know because of the King's Speech. Great film.
Yeah.
And he had to take over the reins of the country because he'd abdicated the throne and left it to the younger brother. And he'd gone traveling around Europe, and people believed he even had a documented meeting with Hitler. And he traveled around Germany, visiting, literally visiting Nazi youth camps, and watching all their activities in the SS training camps. And he still continued to support the Nazi regime. Oh,
Churchill wouldn't have been happy with that.
Churchill, son for the community.
Anyway,
Your
guys, after
community
Mickey has
to be
said
wiped
that,
out of young men.
that's a
Anyway.
good place to end the stream. Well, guys, are we happy to end it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm happy. It's been good. It's been good talking to you.
Yeah, definitely,
Always.
man. Well, guys, you just want to say your goodbyes?
Slang of all.
Actually, I do have one more thing. I was going to mention it when Frank was talking about Stalin and stuff, but I just forgot about it. But there was a quote I heard from, or not from Stalin personally, but like it was a quote from Stalin. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's interesting nonetheless, even if it's just a wise tale. And apparently, one time in one of Stalin's meetings, the chicken, and he grabbed the chicken and he pulled each feather off the chicken, or just started ripping the feathers off the. And then he put the chicken on the floor and it was all bleeding and it was hurt, like. But then he reached into his pocket and pulled out some seeds, and he said, "No matter how much you hurt them, if you still give them a reward, they will follow you." And he put the seeds around the floor as the chicken followed him, picking up the seeds.
Wow,
Right.
that's really dark.
I think that's anti-Soviet, like, but as in like someone made that up as anti-Soviet because it like describes communism, doesn't it? In like a
Yeah.
bad way, doesn't
It does kind of
it?
like sound
But
like
I don't
that when
know.
you say
Maybe
it
it
when you
is
think
true.
about it.
Stalin was a mean bastard.
Yeah.
Can talk about Stalin in a good way though.
Yeah, I don't think there's positive things to say about Joseph Stalin.
Alright,
Anyway,
guys. Will we end it here
Bring
then?
it up in another stream. Yeah.
Oh, I got one
I'm
more.
happy to.
I got one more.
Liam, stop doing one more.
I got one more. One more. One more.
Yeah.
So Walt Disney was also hired by America for their propaganda, and it was Walt Disney who made Nazi movies. And he has a really famous Nazi movie. I can't remember what it's called now. But it depicts the life of a person growing up in Nazi Germany. It was like one of the most famous movies in America at the time. It was Walt Disney who was their PR higher up.
Hmm.
I thought it was
Alright.
cool. Anyways,
Yeah, well,
that's all I have to say.
anyway. Right, Giovanni.
Good.
Alright. Alright, guys, thank you for. Hold on. Alright, guys, thank you for everyone tuning in today. I hope you all enjoyed. Means a lot everyone being here. Thanks everyone for the wolf comments. Means a lot. We should definitely get some dentist fan art going on. That would be great. Again, thank you to Darach Sharkey for